Justin Trudeau and his Liberal government face a critical test this Monday as people in the Toronto-St. Paul's riding vote in a federal by-election. The riding is considered a Liberal stronghold, but the party has been struggling in the polls lately. The CBC's John Paul Tasker went there to speak to some voters.
On a busy morning, it's hard to break through the noise.
Good morning, good morning.
Especially to talk politics.
Hi folks, I'm Leslie Church. I'm your local Liberal candidate.
Toronto-St. Paul's has been a safe seat for the Liberals for more than 30 years, and Leslie Church is Justin Trudeau's candidate this time around. She's favored to win this by-election, but it's his name that's on voters' minds.
I'm just one of those Liberals who can't support Trudeau this time out.
Oh, check Leslie out. Great candidate.
Oh, I know she's a great candidate. She's the best of the bunch.
Yeah.
Justin Trudeau.
Okay.
It's a sentiment Church can't ignore.
Well, look, I do hear a lot of that too, and I think that that's pretty natural for this point in time.
She's pitching Liberal policies on housing and daycare, but she knows the rising cost of living is driving some people away from her party.
They're frustrated, they're cranky, but I also think that they are smart and thoughtful, and that when they look at the alternatives here, they want to vote for people who are actually going to bring real solutions to the table.
Think you can win this thing?
The solution for many of the voters we spoke to, shifting support to Conservative candidate Don Stewart.
Look, we've had a super busy morning, knocking on doors, talking to voters at doors.
Talking to voters, but not journalists.
To voters
What are
and
voters
hear
telling
more.
you?
Thank you.
What are they telling you?
Yeah.
Even Liberal voters at the advanced polls say this by-election should be a wake-up call for the party and its leader.
This riding is important enough as an indicator that he should really seriously contemplate passing the baton at this point while there's still time for a new leader to gain some traction.
Polls suggest the race could be tight.
A lot of the Jewish community usually votes Liberal NDP, and a lot of things have changed.
A lot of time has gone by now, and it's just time for a change.
I had a hard time making a selection this year. I'll just put it that way.
It all comes down to Election Day on June 24th. A poor showing by the Liberals here in St. Paul's could lead to some soul searching for the party and for the Prime Minister. JP Tasker, CBC News, Toronto.
And join us for a special late edition of Power and Politics when the polls close next Monday. We'll take you through those consequential results as they come out. That's at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, not here on News Network, but live on the CBC News app at CBCNews.ca, on CBC News YouTube, Explore, and the CBC News Toronto channel and Gem. Okay, but with all eyes will be on Monday's final result. It's worth noting the number of voters who came out early for this by-election. Elections Canada says of the roughly 84,000 registered voters in Toronto-St. Paul's, 12.75% cast their ballots in advance polls. That's only 8 points lower than the riding's total advance voter turnout in the 2021 general election. It's time to bring in the Power Panel to talk about this critical race. Cameron Ahmad is a former head of communications to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. James Moore is a former Conservative cabinet minister. Andrew Thompson is a former Saskatchewan NDP cabinet minister. And Shachi Kurl is the president of the Angus Reid Institute. Cameron, let's start with you. The Liberals got a lot at stake in this particular race. You heard what Leslie Church had to say about what they're hearing at the doors and her rebuttal to that. Do you think that can carry the day?
Well, not surprised you wanted to talk about this today. Lots of eyes are on this riding. And of course, it's a tough one for the Liberals. It's a tough one for the government. There's no doubt about that. They have obviously a pretty big hill to climb in this riding when you're down in the polls and you're 9 years in government. It's a tough situation for incumbents across the country. This is across the world, actually. It's not just unique to here in Canada. But it's also a test for Pierre Poilievre, right? He has this huge lead in the polls. He has to deliver at least a pretty strong showing here, and I'm sure people will be watching, his own party will be watching to see if he can pull this off. By-elections, as we've talked about before on this panel, are not necessarily a harbinger for what's to come, but they do give up voters in a specific part of the country a chance to send a message and raise some of their concerns or their issues. So we'll see how this turns out, but I think as much a test for Poilievre as it is for the Prime Minister.
James, do you agree that there's an equal test here? I mean, I had a Liberal tell me this morning this is a top 5 safe Liberal seat. This is one they won when Michael Ignatieff was leader. It seems like, yeah, I know Mr. Poilievre wants to do well in Toronto, but it seems like this is a must win for the Liberals, is it not?
Last week, I turned 48. This riding last went conservative when I was 12. Ronald Reagan was still president of the United States. When, as you point out, when Michael Ignatieff had the worst result for the Liberal Party since in 100 years, they held on to this riding when they only won 34 seats. So this riding should go Liberal. And Leslie Church, by the way, is an impressive person. She presents well. She works hard. So she's a good, strong candidate. And clearly the Prime Minister timed this by-election right at the end of the parliamentary session so that no matter what happened, no matter how the budget went, obviously they hope to have a bigger pop and response to the budget than they've had. They hope to have a little bit more wind in the sails, maybe have some good fundraising and all that, and then have a by-election just as people go into Canada Day and go into the summer to say, hey, look, we've still got it. We're still getting elected. We're still doing well in Toronto. But they're flying awfully close to the sun here. And the fact that this is even considered, I mean, the idea, imagine if Stephen Harper were Prime Minister and the Liberals were about to win Fort McMurray, or we were having this conversation in a Fort McMurray by-election, that would be crazy. But here we are. And it gives you a sense of just how bad of a year Justin Trudeau has had and how far he has fallen from his once great heights.
Andrew, you're in Toronto. How do you see this race shaping up?
Well, certainly there's been a shift overall in Ontario towards the Conservatives, about 12 points if the polls are right. That kind of a shift, if it is true in Toronto, does put the seat into play. I think the worrying thing, what I'm hearing from Liberals, and this should worry those who do vote for the Liberal Party, is that it's not Leslie Church's name that people are seeing on the ballot. This really is about Justin Trudeau, and there are a lot of Liberals who are wanting to send a message to Justin Trudeau that it's time for him to go. That's a dangerous kind of equation to be putting, question to be putting to the electorate in a by-election, and that seems to be what's happening. The NDP normally would be in a position to gain votes out of this, as they did in 2011 when the Liberal Party collapsed. But of course, their position throughout the spring on the war in Gaza has alienated almost entirely the Jewish community in the city. So the upside for them in this seat that has a large number of Jewish voters is grim as well. All of that points to the Conservatives being in a very strong position to pick this seat up.
Shachi, 10,787 people voted in the advance polls. That is just under 13% of the total available electorate. You're a numbers person. What do numbers like that suggest? I know more and more people are voting early in the advance, so we don't want to overreact to it, but boy, that seems high for a by-election.
To your point, more and more people are choosing to avail themselves of opportunities to vote early. It's easier to vote maybe on a Thursday evening than on a Monday. When you're trying to wrap up the kids' last week of school, trying to get packed for the cottage and do all the things that one does at the end of June. Look, it does signal that among those who are motivated to vote, they're really, really motivated to vote. And I just wish we know who they voted for to give us a sense of where we're at. We're going to have to wait until all the votes are counted on Monday evening. But, we often, the collective, we often do a thing where we take national politics and national issues and try to layer them or apply them onto the ultimate test of local politics. When Andrew talks about angry Jewish voters and the diaspora feeling abandoned by this Liberal government, that is going to mean more than cost of living, frankly, or housing, particularly in that riding, or foreign interference or maybe capital gains, but some other issues that we think are going to move the needle nationally. But this is also tremendously, and you asked about turnout, the absolute must-win test of get out the vote for the Liberal Party machine. And so one has to ask the question as well, despite the fact that we may well see the Conservatives make gains in this riding, we may even see the Conservatives steal one in this riding. One cannot think that all of those staffers come volunteers and party workers and campaign folks and volunteers on the ground who have helped deliver the vote, going back those 36 plus years that James just talked about, would let this happen on their watch, right? So it will be a street fight. It is literally a block to block, postal code to postal code, poll to poll, and poll in the constituency use of the word fight, in terms of Did you contact your neighbor? Did you contact your aunt, your grandma, your brother, and yank them to the polls on this, the longest, this is going to be one of the longest days of the year. They don't close patio bars on hot summer evenings anymore. So turnout, this is all going to be about turnout, and the local issues that motivated people.
Well, look, if the Oilers win tomorrow night, it'll also be Game 7. So, I mean, that just shows you what the stakes, Cameron.
Toronto, though. Are Torontonians watching Edmonton?
Well, everyone in Toronto assumes we all want to watch the Leafs, so I'm just going to apply that stereotype back at them. But Cameron, Barbara McDougall was the last person who wasn't a Liberal to win this seat. And as James said earlier, that is not yesterday. This is core GTA, 100% red in 15, 19, and 21. I mean, you said earlier it's an equal test. It just doesn't feel like it's equal.
I didn't say equal, but it's, I think, also a test for Poilievre, as it is a test for the Prime Minister.
So what's the pass-fail for Poilievre then, in your view? Because, I mean, it's hold the seat with a decent win for the Liberals. What's pass-fail for Pierre Poilievre here?
Hard to say pass-fail, but he's very far ahead in the polls. He's riding on a huge wave right now, and he does have to show that he can actually translate that into votes. That's just a critical measure for him as the leader of the official opposition right now. So, I mean, at the same time, I think it's important to remember that, to Shachi's point, there are local issues at play. We're a year out, possibly plus, from a national election. And of course, it's not good for the Prime Minister and for the Liberals if they don't win this, but there is time to learn from this result and to sharpen the message, understand what this means nationally and how this could translate across the country. And it's not the doomsday scenario that I think a lot of people, including, by the way, within my own party, might be saying or might be feeling about this result. It's not a good thing if they don't win. They have time, though, to learn from it and improve moving into the next year.
So James, just looking at the 21 result, the Liberals won by about 23 percentage points over the Conservatives. In 19, they won by 33 percentage points. Nobody I speak to thinks it's going to be even a double-digit win if the Liberals win this time. That seems like a good showing for the Conservatives.
Yes, and those are also two elections where the Liberals lost the popular vote nationally and won bare minority governments. So look, I respect Cameron. I appreciate what he's trying to spin here. But look, if this is a test for Pierre Poilievre, then the test for Pierre Poilievre is, can he win 335 seats? That would be the test. So look, the Liberals should win. Leslie Church is a credible candidate. They've won this riding, as I said, since 1988. That's 6 U.S. presidents ago. The idea that this is a test on Pierre is obviously not true. The Liberals should win, likely will win. If they don't, then it's curtains for Prime Minister Trudeau by this summer, I imagine.